So I started the Newsouls series, which is also by Jody Meadows, and I started with the novella this time, and that is Phoenix Overture, and this takes place 5,000 years before the actual series, and follows Dawson, his brother, and then his best friend, and shows how they became the reincarnated souls of the main trilogy. And yeah, it was pretty interesting. It was definitely a lot darker than I was expecting. And I wasn't expecting for them to be all these mythical creatures either. You know, there was dragons, centaurs, and phoenixes were mentioned. And I thought at first that was just myth, but then it was mentioned that they were real. So I'm definitely interested to get into the main series and see how all these mythical creatures play out and everything, and see how the forgetting of this original life affects everybody. And yeah, it was definitely a really good start to the series, and I do recommend definitely starting with this novella to kind of set it all up. And I will see you all when I start the next book. Alright, so I just started reading Incarnate, which is the first book in the Newsouls series. And I just have to read this because this is like, wow. So this is the 330th Year of Songs, Week 3. What is a soul but a consciousness born and born again? With the rise of new technology, we know souls can be measured as a series of vibrations, which soul tellers map out on machines. Each sequence is unique. Each sequence is the same as it was in its previous incarnation, no matter how different the body may be. I have been reborn 100 times, and I remember every generation. Souls are sentients, an essence born into a new body when the old one dies. There have always been 1,000,000 souls, but now we're 1,000,000 minus 1. 5 years ago, the temple flashed dark on the night Sienna died. This evening, when Lee gave birth to our daughter, we expected Sienna's reincarnation. Instead, truths on which we built society were irrevocably made uncertain. Soul tellers took the newborn's hand and pressed it on the soul scanner, and the vibration sequence searched for a match in the database. There was no match, which means this soul has never been born before. So where did it come from? What happened to Sienna's soul? Has it been replaced? Might others be replaced? Is this new soul even real? Yeah, this series has me really, really excited. That was just like, wow, absolutely blew me away, and that's literally just the first page. So I'm really, really excited to get into this now, and hopefully I won't be updating this like 1,000,000 times. That'd be kind of funny if I did 1,000,000 updates for 1,000,000 souls. But yeah, I'm going to get back to reading because I want to know what happens. I'm up to chapter 8 in Incarnate now, and I definitely have some questions. I'm pretty sure Sam is going to be Dawson. We'll find out later on. However, I am wondering who's lying about his birthday. Is he or is the council? Because as Anna said, the council gave a different birth date. He said him and Anna shared it, and the council said his is 2 weeks after hers. So who's telling the truth? And then I'm wondering too, Anna, which is spelled A-N-A, is she the reincarnation of Janan, maybe? Which is spelled J-A-N-A-N. I'm really curious to find out the answers to this. And yeah, I'll keep you all updated as I read more. So I finished Incarnate today. Well, I should say the same day, in one day. So it was definitely an interesting read. I did enjoy it. I did feel like parts were a little exaggerated. However, with it being YA, I do feel like some of the exaggerations were something that a teen would kind of feel like, because they're not fully equipped to deal with everything mentally because, just their brains haven't developed. I am going to be interested in reading more about the reincarnation and, how the people deal with it. Because they did mention, like, there was an infant directing his parents to what he wanted, just being completely calm and everything, which makes sense in a way because, he's been alive for 5,000 years, but they're reborn into bodies as infants. So I'm just wondering, like, do they learn to speak and walk and everything earlier? Or is it just that even though he can't speak, he's able to make his needs and wants known by, maybe like pointing and stuff, instead of crying? So I'm definitely interested to see that more explored. And one thing that did confuse me a little bit is that they always talk about the Quindeck when they turn 15. That's mentioned several times as, that's when they're considered physically adults when they move out and everything. But then a couple other times it's mentioned that, oh, they can't work until they're Quindeck when they're 15. And then that they're moving out yet at 13 and 14. So it's kind of like, okay, which is it? Are they moving out at 15 when they can work, or are they moving out at 13 and 14? And if they are, how are they surviving for those 1 or 2 years until they can work? And yeah, so there's just a few questions there, but then that ending was very action-packed. I'm definitely interested to see what happens in just over a year. And that was another thing. They're saying, Soul Day isn't every year. How do they know what years it is? Or is it every other year, every third year, or some sort of pattern like that? That's something I'm also looking forward to learning, and I'm sure there has to be some sort of pattern to it that we're just not privy to. And to learn more about this tower and what exactly Janan's plan is, because ever since Phoenix Overture, I really don't trust him. Like, he seems just kind of like he wants this power. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see as well how these other new souls are treated, especially now that it's known how they've come to be. And yes, I'm not decided yet if I'm going to dive into the second book right now. It's about 9 o'clock at night, so it's not that late. But I may just wait until tomorrow and kind of do some other stuff tonight. But I will keep you updated when I start that second book. So I'm about halfway through Asunder, and so far it's been okay. It's not quite as interesting as the first book, in my opinion. It's definitely moving a little bit slower, although we do get the big reveal that if you read Phoenix Overture first, you will know that the new souls are eaten by Janan so that the old souls can be reborn. So Anna finds that out and tells Dassam, And then throughout this book, we're also learning that there's things they can't remember. Like, they do know that the tower is empty, but they don't know how they know. When Anna tries to tell Sam about the first time she was in there, he constantly forgets that she was. When she goes in the second time, she goes missing for a week and he forgets where she was. So yeah, that was rather interesting. And then I have quite a few questions that I came up with. And so I'm wondering what would happen if somebody was born when all 1 million souls have been reincarnated? And at the same time, what if there's only one soul waiting and the pregnant person has twins, triplets, anything that's a multiple birth? It seems to me that, I don't understand how this has never happened. I know they do keep genealogies to make sure that people, don't inbreed or whatever, but at the same time, okay, we've been approved to have a child. So why do they have to be approved then to have a second child? Nobody's ever thought of that. Nobody's ever been like, well, we want a second child. And that's not really touched on, at least not yet. I'm hoping it will be either in this next half or in the final book. Because, yeah, like I said, I'm really curious. And especially, it's been 5,000 years. How have there been no multiple births, at least? I know, twins and stuff aren't super common, but they're also not super rare. And, yeah, I just feel like that go a lot of the places. And then they're talking about this new creature, the sylph. And I'm thinking they're either unborn souls, or they're the souls of those who stayed behind in the community, or the ones who made the trek but then decided they weren't going to be a part of the reincarnation. And this was actually almost confirmed when Anna went back into this tower the second time, because she is told that they are vengeance. And that's the only thing I can think of that would be vengeance. And especially when they weren't mentioned until now. The centaurs and everything, Phoenix's dragons, were all mentioned in Phoenix Overture. And then there's mentioned that there's more white walls that people have run into either down south or up north. And this is another thing that they glimpse it and then they forget it immediately after saying that, and they don't remember any details. So is this more Janan communities, or are they just places that are similar to Heart? Who built them? Who built Heart? Because reading Phoenix Overture, they just found Heart. And yeah, I just have so many questions, and I'm really hoping these are all answered. And if they are, I have a feeling this is going to be a really great series. I will say, like I said, this book definitely suffers from second book syndrome. It's kind of just been day-to-day life with some world building, some mystery thrown in, and I'm hoping that it'll start to pick up now. So yeah, I'm going to read more and update you all later. So I finished the last half of Asunder, and we did get confirmation that the sylphs are those souls who chose to either stay behind or refuse to join in the reincarnation, because in the end, Anna goes back into the tower, and, well, she is actually thrown in the tower, and when she escapes with the help of Chris and Steph. And Chris basically tries to fight Janan, and when he fails, there's then a sylph that appears, and when Anna calls this sylph Chris, he reacts. And so that is definitely confirmed. And then the buildings were supposedly made by the Phoenixes. Now, all the other places were just a wall around a tower. So, who built the actual houses and other buildings is still a question. That was not the Phoenixes. And yeah, I'm really hoping these questions are answered in book 3. And I'm also really hoping for a little more world building on how they managed to never have an extra person born. And I look forward to hopefully finding out some more stuff. And I will see you all later as I read the next book. One thing I really hated in Asunder is we have a love square pretty much going on. In this lifetime, Dawson is a man, and of course we have his best friend Stefan. In this lifetime, Stefan is a female, and then we have Chris, who in this lifetime is a male, and of course you have Anna. And so Steph has apparently been in love with Dawson for a while, and becomes extremely jealous, and does bring up some good points, but brings them up in a very cruel way, and it's very obvious that she is jealous. And I really disliked that. And then, of course, Anna finds the Blue Rose Overture, I believe it was. It was a song written about the blue roses that Chris had gardened and created and cared for. And apparently in this lifetime, Chris had been in a female body. And yes, then they had a relationship. I didn't mind the Chris and Sam as much, because Chris did not get jealous. Or if Chris did get jealous, it was not to the same extent as Steph was, and Chris was not as cruel as Steph was. And then Chris does wind up with feelings for Anna, and I just felt like there was way too much going on there, way too much drama. It could have been toned back a lot, and I felt like the way Steph handled her jealousy was very juvenile. It was something I would expect from a very, just barely a teenager, maybe up to 17, 18, if that. And not only has Steph been obviously reincarnated the past 5,000 years with the rest, Steph is also older than Sam and Anna, who are both physically at least 18. I just feel like this could have been handled so much better, and hopefully going into this third book, there won't be as much drama there. So I'm about halfway through Infinite, and this one pretty much picks up right where Asunder ends, with the whole group that's going with Anna and Dawson getting ready to leave. And then, of course, they leave, and we follow them as they trek through the wilderness. And in all honesty, not a whole lot happens in the first probably about quarter to a third. Once they actually leave the laboratory, that's when things start to happen. That's when the sylphs show up, and then you see how the sylph are helping them, and then Anna's finally able to talk to the sylph. And of course, when she reveals the big secret about Janan and reincarnation, everyone freaks out because Sam wasn't told. Anna never told him. She didn't want him to know. And then Steph knew. But of course, Steph is mad because Steph didn't want her to tell either. So she's mad that she did tell. And yes, it's basically a whole big to-do. And I understand why, but I did feel like, again, Steph acts very immature. And I feel like even Anna's more mature than Steph. And that really bothers me, because not only has it been stated, as I mentioned in the previous book, I believe, or possibly even the first, Steph is slightly older than them. And she's old enough, I would say she's probably late 20s. So she's almost 10 years older than them physically, on top of the fact that she's 5,000 years old, just like Sam and everybody else is. Her soul's that old. So yeah, I just felt like her character's really being butchered, and I did not enjoy that at all. I am glad that, she does have parts in here where she seems to be less jealous and more understanding, so I did like that. And I am interested to see what the second half of this book brings, because, we did find out that when Janan ascends, the caldera that Heart is built on will explode. They've already had more earthquakes, more geothermal issues, so on and so forth, so they know it's coming. And Anna knows when, because it's been mentioned Soul Night, which is the spring equinox, and they're getting closer and closer to that. She's finally been able to translate the books that she got from Janan's tower, and it turns out the dragons have a weapon. So right now, she is going with the sylph to try to get the dragons to use this weapon. I'm definitely interested to see what that will bring, so I do have high hopes for the second half of this book. So I have just over 100 pages left now, and everything's starting to come together for sure. They've communicated with the dragons now, and apparently Sam has the Phoenix song in him, which can destroy the dragons somehow. And yet when they ask the dragons to destroy the tower, and then it's also, they say, don't kill Sam, don't kill anybody. They say, but they want us to destroy him, but not destroy him. So I'm getting really confused, and I'm really hoping that there's like a really good explanation, because on some things there just haven't been. Like in the first book, I mentioned how Sam lied about his birthday. Well, he didn't lie, he just forgot. At one point, his birthday, I guess, was January 1st, and so, because they've been reborn so many times, he just forgot when this body's birthday was, which I found kind of anticlimactic, but I suppose it does make sense when you've been reborn, 100 times or so, and obviously you're going to have different birthdays every time, even if they're close. So I guess that was realistic, but still kind of a little lackluster, although I don't know. What would have been better? Why else would he have lied to her? Other than it just being plain forgetting. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to see how everything goes, and I'm going to get back to reading. So I finished Infinite, and that was a rather interesting ending. I do like how, it gives hope for the future. Basically, everybody gets one more life. The ones who were old souls, and then all the new souls will now be born. Although I do kind of wish that it had gone a little further into the future, when the new souls were a little older, like maybe 20s or so, and had actually given some more information about them. As it is, it was a decent ending, but I did feel like the ending was a little focused on the romance aspect. But yeah, I did enjoy this trilogy, and it was kind of a different take, and I do feel like it has a lot of food for thought and opens up a lot of philosophical questions. So yeah, I did enjoy it, and I do recommend it if you are a YA fan. If you do not like YA, I definitely don't recommend it because it does lean a little bit towards that. But that is the end of the series, and I will see you all in the book cave next time.